Hello, welcome to this new video on the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. Today we will read verse number 33 and we will learn about new ways or techniques to awaken consciousness, to awaken Kundalini. First, let me read the verse, the shloka, and offer a translation. So this is verse 33. Listen first in Sanskrit. īdṛśena krameṇaiva yatra kutrāpi cintanā śūnye kuḍye pare pātre svayaṃ līnā varapradā. So, she who is the giver of boons, varapradā, it's of course consciousness or awareness, universal consciousness, the one and only light that shines on and through everything and everyone. She is prada, she is the giver. She is the giver because she's the source of everything. Why? Because everything is consciousness. And as everything is consciousness, every content, concrete or abstract, private or public, real or imaginary, then it follows that the cause of everything, the source of everything, can only be consciousness herself. So she's the source of everything, and especially she's the source of everything that's good. All that's bad comes from her not recognizing herself in me, in you, in any individual. When she does not recognize herself, her own power blinds her, and then blinds me and you and us. But when she recognizes herself, or even when she only partly recognizes herself through any kind of intuition, however confused that intuition may be, then she's a source of boons, vara, of what is best, of what is satyam, shivam, sundaram, of what is true, beautiful, and good. So she is the giver of boon, and usually deities in India, they are sources of what is best, defined through those three words, satyam, shivam, sundaram. And usually that goddess is creative, she's dynamic, she is creating all the time. All that appears, experience, the content of experience, through the deities of the five senses, through the deities of the inner organs, the mind, the sense of ego, etc. And we've seen before that this power, when she displays the world, the everyday world, is in some ways sleeping at the bottom of the subtle body, which is the real body, the body as we feel it, the private body. And she sleeps, so to speak, at the bottom of it. And then she is called the Kundalini. In the traditions of Kashmir Shaivism, in the Trika Kaula, Krama Kaula, in those Kaula traditions, Kundalini is not necessarily a snake sleeping at the basis of the subtle body, but she may be. It's an option. It's not so mainstream as it will become later on, but it's there. And to awaken awareness, whether she starts at the bottom of the subtle body, or in the navel, or in the heart. Those variations do exist. One can awaken her through the practice of mantra. Mantra means, in the mind of people today, some kind of physical vibration which has some physical power, or some quantum power, or whatever. But in the tradition, a mantra is a kind of angel coming from universal consciousness into the world of forgetfulness, of Maya, in order to bring back the graced souls back to the source. So the goal of mantras is yoga, the state of union of the individual with the divine. And therefore, mantras are coming down and then they go back up together along with the soul of the adept, of the yogi, of the yogini. And that practice is the practice of elevating or expanding awareness through the practice of mantra. So here it's not mantra as some kind of magic tool, even though that remains an option as well. It's not the practice of repetition with a rosary, like it's called japa. It's not mantra japa, repetition of a mantra. It's rather called uchara. Chara means moving, ut, upward. So it's the practice of moving upward, moving consciousness, moving individual consciousness, sleeping consciousness, forgetful consciousness, moving it upward with the help of the mantra, which of course is also a vibration, a kind of sound. So for that practice, you sit down, you take a simple mantra like Om, and you start sounding the mantra at the bottom of the body, as if the sound were coming from the ground or the earth itself, herself. And it's starting with the Ah, then with the U, it's more or less reaching the region of the lungs. Then with the start of the nasalization, the it reaches the palate, the mouth, and then it elevates through 9 more subtle stages described in the tradition, up to the state of unmana, beyond the mind, mindless, above the mind, transcending it. The mind here means inner speech, articulated speech. So unmana means inner silence, silent awareness, especially here in the krameṇaiva tradition, where silence and emptiness are foremost. And it may very well be that this Vijnana Bhairava Tantra is in fact a compilation, a teaching coming from that tradition. And that's why it would enumerate at the end of the deities, at the beginning of the Tantra, the Shakti Swarupam. Shakti Swarupam would allude to Kala Sankarshini, the supreme deity of the Kali Krama Kaula tradition. So one elevates the mantra, sitting down, closed eyes, and you start sounding Om, and while you do it, you elevate your consciousness upwards, up to the space like 20 centimeters above the top of the head, and even higher to the infinite. It's like an endless movement. It starts from the earth, from the lowest, it rises, and opens up while doing so, and it rises into the infinite space, which is infinite open awareness. So you practice like this, as if you were doing only one, the final, the final mantra. That's the spirit of it. It's not repetition, even though you can repeat, of course, the practice, but it's not a spirit of repetition. It's rather a one shot, one, as if there was only one chance, one go, the final travel, the final move to infinite openness, silent awareness. So you go like this. And awareness continues to vibrate in a more and more subtle way, even when the physical sound has stopped. There is a subtle mental sound, inner private sound, continuing more and more subtle, and to silence, and to absolute silence. So that's the practice of Ujjhara. That's the main practice to awaken Kundalini, or to awaken consciousness, individual consciousness, contracted consciousness, back into expanded, open, universal consciousness. And that's not the only way to practice, to explore that, because here in verse 33 of the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, we have another variation of it, which might be quite helpful to open up consciousness. So varapradā is consciousness. īdṛśena krameṇaiva. By that very process, in that very way, krama, a way of walking, talking the mantra is walking its path up through the central channel, through the body, through the center of the body, up to silent awareness. So it's going up through the process, through the path, rather, the central path with its 12 stages, 12 centers, corresponding more or less to the chakras, but with more between them. So we have the sexual organ, we have the root of the sexual organ, then we have a point, a zone corresponding to the hara, between below the navel. Then we have the navel, then the heart, then the throat, then the palate, then between the eyebrows, then the front, the middle of the cranium, here, lalarta. Then brahmarandra, the opening to the absolute, it's the fontanelle, the top of the head. Then shakti, then we have outside the physical body, only in the subtle body, called shakti vyapini. And then final stage, which is transcending all that, is unmana, beyond the mind. Of course, there are variations in those centers, stages, etc., but here suffice it to say that there are 12 stages. And so awareness is rising with the mantra, īdṛśena krameṇaiva, yatra kutrāpi cintanā, wherever, and this is where it starts to be very interesting and very original, yatra kutrāpi, and also wherever cintanā, attention, projects herself, that is śūnye, on empty, kuḍye, on a wall, pare, on someone else, pātre, on a vessel, There itself, yatra, kutrāpi, then tatra. There itself, consciousness, svayaṃ līnā, gets absorbed back into herself, into her pristine original state, expanded, naked, open, silent awareness. So here we are instructed that we follow the same path as the elevation of the mantra through the mantra vichara that I just explained, but instead of doing it inside one's body, we do it onto some outer body. Like it can be, explains to us the commentator, it can be in the sky. For instance, I sit with open eyes or with closed eyes, and I feel, I evoke that very same process of elevation of the mantra, but not in my body, in the outer space. It can be also on a wall, or it can be in someone else, or it can be, let's say, it's not given by the commentator, but it's a possibility. I can practice sitting in front of a tree. I can practice with a mountain, a huge mountain, like 3,000 meters, like I have right now in front of me. I can resonate mentally or physically the mantra, or both, and feel that elevation, that rising of the vibration through the mountain and through space above the mountain. And let's not forget that those traditions, they come from areas mountainous. Kashmir and Swat Valley are all areas of high mountains. So this is very much a possibility. Whatever has a vertical form rising into space, I can do the practice with that. I can do the practice with someone else. We can be sitting in front of each other, and we can do the practice together, but rising the awareness through the body of one another, exchanging the rising of Kundalini, doing kind of an exchange of Shaktipat, so to speak, an exchange of energy, rising each other's energy or awareness through each other's body. We can do that in space, we can do that rising high in space. There are no limits there, and it's a feeling of expansion of awareness, which is an opening, which is a release, and which brings one directly into silence, into peace, into relaxed awareness. And of course, this is a source of not only freedom, but of joy, of pleasure, of bliss, a blissful awareness, a silent awareness, without any weight, without any constraint, is a blissful awareness. So, here, that is the practice of that verse. That's what we learn here. That's what we are instructed. We practice the rising of Kundalini, the rising of awareness, together along with the mantra, not just in our body, because our real body, as the Shiva Sutras say, is whatever is perceived, whatever is the content of awareness, is the incarnation, the murti, the crystallization, the solidification, so to speak, of awareness. So my body is whatever is perceived, so I can practice the same rising of awareness through the body with anybody. physical or a person or an animal or whatever. And that's the same process of starting within the body, focusing on the body, and rising through it. That is, getting freed from the body. That's awareness, getting freed from any of its content. Like usually I am focused, for instance, on that, say, on that pot. But I rise through it, and my awareness is no more focused, but is expanded, open, and freed from the constraints, from the limits of that object, of that pot. Because the characteristic, the true nature of awareness is not being limited in its manifestation, in its light, in its shining, na parimiyate. Whereas the definition of a body, of a content, of an object, is being parichinna prakasha, being of limited manifestation, as says Abhinavagupta. So through that practice, I rise. It's not only imagination, it's not only visualization, it is rather feeling. It's feeling. I am riding through the mountain. I am rising through that tree. I am riding through that building. I am rising through that tower, through that sky, through that open blue sky, above the clouds. I am rising through the stars. I am rising through that other person, that friend in front of me. So this is a very, very, very powerful practice to free awareness of its contraction, of its self-inflicted contraction, and to bring it back to openness, silent, free, weightless, wordless. Not excluding words, not excluding contractions, but free from them, not limited to them. So, and the commentator cites a verse comparing that practice to a scale, rising up a scale, sopana, padakrameṇa, samshrayataha. It is rising through the body with the help of the body, from what is felt grossly, however grossly, to what is felt more and more subtly, in a subtler and subtler way. Paratattva rudhalabhi, and then when it gets rooted, no more just in the body, but in infinite space, in silence. Silence, which is very important in the Kalikrama tradition. Paryante Shivamayi Bhava, and in the end, what is in the divine state, because the divine state is none other than open, naked, silent awareness. So that's all for today. Hope it's clear. And if you want, you can have a look at my French translation of the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, which was published back in 2015 and which contains the translation of the two Sanskrit commentaries, the two traditional commentaries on the root text, together with other texts belonging to the same type of instructions, like the Svabododaya Manjari, etc. So, thank you for listening, have a good day, and see you then next time.